The sensor screamed a warning that should have been impossible. Something was coming from the void where nothing had ever existed. Something ancient. Something human. And it was about to change everything. Commander Xifax's 3 eyes dilated in disbelief as the holographic projections materialized before him. The Draxian officer had spent 43 cycles monitoring the deep space observation grid, and never, not once, had the instruments registered anything like this. "Run full diagnostics," he barked, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "These readings are impossible." At the sensor array, Technician Lyra's crystalline fingers moved with frantic precision across the quantum interface. The young Saralin's bioluminescent skin flickered anxiously through the spectrum. "Commander, diagnostics complete. No system errors. The signatures are confirmed. Multiple massive objects approaching from Sector 0. Sector 0. The designation alone sent ripples of unease through the observation deck. It was a galactic dead zone, an expanse of absolute emptiness beyond the spiral arm's edge where no star had ignited, no world had formed, no civilization had ever ventured. Until now, Xifax activated the emergency broadcast, his voice steady despite the dread coiling in his chest. "This is Deep Space Station Vigilance to Galactic Alliance Command. Priority Alpha alert. We have multiple unidentified massive contacts emerging from Sector 0. Approximate count, 217 objects. Request immediate council assembly." Within moments, holographic representatives from 39 worlds materialized around the command center, the air filled with a cacophony of alien languages before the universal translators synchronized into harmony. "Explain this interruption, Commander," demanded High Counselor Draxar, his reptilian form towering even in hologram. His scales shimmered with irritation. "I was mediating the sovereign disputes." "Counselor," Xifax replied, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Something is emerging from Sector 0. The command center fell into absolute silence. For 5 seconds, no one breathed. For 6 days, the galaxy watched the void. The objects grew closer. Sensor resolution improved. And the truth they revealed was more terrifying than any nightmare. They were vessels, warships, the smallest dwarfed Alliance dreadnoughts. The largest defied all known engineering principles. A mobile fortress the size of a planetary moon, its hull scarred by weapons that shouldn't exist. Dr. Elena Vasquez couldn't sleep. As the human liaison to the Galactic Alliance Council, she should have been drafting diplomatic protocols and reviewing first contact procedures. Instead, she sat in her quarters aboard Station Vigilance, hands trembling as she studied the data streaming across her holographic display. The ship architecture was wrong. No, not wrong. Ancient. The designs matched fragments from Earth's fragmented historical archives, from an era before the Alliance, before humanity joined the galactic community, from the desperate years when Earthstar began its death throes and humanity screamed into the darkness, launching their children toward any hope of survival. She had studied that period at the Academy. Everyone had. The Great Dispersal, they called it. 63 colony expeditions launched into the unknown darkness. 7 found habitable worlds, and eventually discovered the Alliance. The rest simply vanished, presumed lost the void's embrace. But these vessels, they matched Fleet Exodus, the Ghost Armada, the most heavily militarized expedition ever assembled. 50 warships escorting 12 colony ships, carrying 3 million souls into uncertainty. Her door chimed. She opened it to find Ambassador Kale 9, a quadrupedal philosopher species known for their wisdom. His sensory tendrils quivered with concern. "You've analyzed the data," he stated, his voice a harmonious blend of tones. "They're human ships," Elena whispered, her voice cracking, "from over 1 million standard years ago." Kale 9 entered, his crystalline eyes reflecting her fear. "The Council is terrified, Elena. Vessels that survive 1 million years in the void? What technology would that require? What power? What weapons?" "I don't know," she admitted, her throat tight. "We have no records of Fleet Exodus's full capabilities. Most archives from that era were destroyed when old Earth was evacuated during the solar expansion. The Council will demand answers, Kale 9 said gently, one tendril touching her shoulder in a gesture of support. They will want assurances that these ancient humans pose no threat. Elena met his gaze. How can I promise that? I don't know what they become out there. On the 7th day, the fleet decelerated at the boundary of Alliance space. 217 ships hung in the void like monuments to a forgotten age. Their hulls bore scars that spoke of unimaginable violence. Impacts that should have shattered lesser vessels. Burn marks from weapons that radiated exotic energy signatures. Strange glyphs covered their armor, symbols in no known human language. The largest vessel, the moon-sized fortress, broadcast on ancient Earth frequencies. The message was simple, transmitted in a dialect that predated modern human speech by countless generations. This is Military Expeditionary Fleet Exodus, United Earth Defense Coalition. We request navigation coordinates to Earth. We are coming home. The Alliance Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted in 20 languages simultaneously, their translators struggling to process the overlapping panic. Elena stood at the human delegation's platform, trying to make her voice heard over the pandemonium. Order, the council arbiter, an ancient energy being contained within a prismatic shell, amplified its voice until the chamber trembled. We will proceed with established first contact protocols. Ambassador Vasquez, your species will coordinate the initial exchange. Elena's stomach twisted, but she nodded. Within 2 hours, she found herself aboard a diplomatic shuttle, approaching the colossal fleet. The ships loomed before her like the monuments of dead gods, terrible in their beauty, magnificent in their menace. The communication channel crackled. Diplomatic vessel, you are clear for docking with Command Fortress Eternal Sentinel. Prepare for contact. The voice was human, but something was profoundly wrong with it. Too precise, too cold, like a simulation of humanity rather than humanity itself. Elena's shuttle glided into a docking bay that could have held 100 vessels her size. As the airlock pressurized, she checked her bioscanners. Atmosphere, breathable, Earth standard mix. Temperature, 12 degrees Celsius, unusually cold. The airlock opened. A figure waited in the dimly lit corridor beyond. He stood over 2 meters tall, wearing armor that seemed fused directly to his body. His skin possessed an unsettling metallic sheen, and his eyes glowed with an eerie blue luminescence. But his face, weathered, scarred, hardened by unimaginable trials, was unmistakably human. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, his voice matching the transmission exactly. I am Fleet Commander Alexei Voronov, commanding officer of Fleet Exodus. Welcome home. Elena tried to speak, but her throat had gone dry. She swallowed and forced the words out. Commander, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance and modern humanity, I welcome you home. Voronov studied her with those unblinking luminescent eyes. Modern humanity, he repeated, as if tasting unfamiliar food. How interesting. Come, we have much to show you. He led her through corridors that seemed to pulse with organic life, though no crew members were visible. The walls themselves glowed with circuitry that resembled neural pathways, technology far beyond anything Elena recognized. After what felt like an eternity of walking, they entered a vast chamber. Elena gasped. Thousands of people stood in perfect formation, all wearing the same biomechanical armor as Voronov. They stood absolutely motionless, their eyes all glowed with that same eerie blue light. When Voronov entered, they snapped to attention as one, a movement so perfectly synchronized it seemed choreographed by a single consciousness. My crew, Voronov said simply, what remains of them. We departed Earth with 3 million souls. These 14,000 are the survivors. Survivors of what? Elena whispered, horror creeping into her voice. Voronov gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the chamber center. It showed a region of space filled with incomprehensible structures, vast mechanical constructs that dwarf planets, networks of stations connected by impossible bridges of energy. Ships moved between them, but these were unlike anything Elena had seen. Vessels that seemed both organic and mechanical, their hulls covered in what appeared to be black crystalline growth. We entered a region controlled by an intelligence we designated the Harvesters. Voronov explained, his voice carrying no emotion. They were older than the stars themselves. Ancient autonomous systems left behind by a civilization that transcended physical form eons ago. But the machines did not transcend. They remained, and they were insatiably hungry. The hologram shifted, showing a battle. Fleet Exodus's ships fought against a swarm of enemy vessels that seemed endless. Elena watched ships explode, watched thousands die in silence. For 327 years of subjective time, we fought them. Voronov continued. But relativistic effects from our experimental void drive systems meant that outside our reference frame, over a million years passed. We couldn't return the way we came. The temporal distortion was too severe. We could only move forward, always forward, fighting for every light year. How did you survive? Elena whispered. Voronov looked down at his armored hands. We adapted. We evolved. We had no choice. Our scientists created augmentations that allowed us to survive in hard vacuum, to interface directly with our ships, to process information faster, to fight harder. Our geneticists rewrote our DNA to eliminate weakness, optimize healing, extend lifespan. Our engineers incorporated capture-harvester technology into our bodies. He looked directly at Elena, and she saw something terrifying in those glowing eyes. Something that was still human, but had been forged in a crucible beyond imagining. We became weapons, Ambassador. Living weapons. It was the only way to win. The crew around them remained motionless, but Elena could feel their attention focused on her like the gaze of a predator. 14,000 augmented humans, transformed into something barely recognizable. We finally destroyed the last Harvester stronghold 93 years ago, Voronov said quietly, and then we turned toward home. We followed stellar charts older than civilizations, navigating by dead stars and quantum echoes. And now we are here. He stepped closer, and Elena fought the urge to retreat. Tell me, Ambassador, did we succeed? Did humanity survive? Did our sacrifice mean anything? Elena found her voice, though it shook. Yes, humanity survived. Earth was evacuated before the sun died. We found new worlds. We joined the Galactic Alliance. We're thriving. Something flickered across Voronov's augmented features. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. Hard to tell. Good, he said softly. Then it was worth it. Every moment of hell. Every transformation. Every sacrifice. He turned to address his crew, his voice rising to carry through the vast chamber. Fleet Exodus. Our mission is complete. We have found humanity. We have returned home. 14,000 voices responded as one, a sound that echoed like thunder. Long live humanity. Elena was escorted back to her shuttle in silence. As she departed the massive fortress, she looked back at the fleet hanging in space. 217 ships that had survived a million years of war, crewed by humans who had transformed themselves into living weapons to ensure their species' survival. What would the Council say? What would modern humanity say when they learned what their ancestors had become? But more importantly, what did Fleet Exodus want now? They had completed their mission. They had found home. But these were warriors who had known nothing but war for over 3 centuries. Could they adapt to peace? Would they even want to? As her shuttle accelerated toward Station Vigilance, Elena began composing her report. But she knew that no words could prepare the galaxy for what was coming. Fleet Exodus had returned, and the universe would never be the same. The Alliance Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 39 member species packed the space, their holographic projections overlapping in some places. The air hummed with tension and the mingled respirations of a dozen different biological systems. Elena stood at the human delegation's platform, exhausted. She hadn't slept in 43 hours, spending every moment reviewing ancient records and preparing her assessment. Around her, the human delegation looked equally stricken. They were scientists, diplomats, artists, educators. None of them were warriors. None of them understood how to process what Fleet Exodus represented. The situation is clear, High Counselor Draxlar declared, his voice sharp as shattered glass. These ancient humans possess technology beyond our comprehension. Their vessels alone could devastate our entire defense fleet. We must consider them a potential threat. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena felt anger rising in her chest, but Ambassador KL9 placed a calming tendril on her arm before she could speak. "Let us not be hasty," KL9 said, his harmonious voice carrying surprising authority. "These humans endured unimaginable horrors to return home. They believed they were protecting their species. Should we punish them for their sacrifice?" "No one speaks of punishment," interjected Counselor Silara, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. "But we must understand what we are dealing with. Ambassador Vasquez, you spoke with their commander. What is your assessment?" All eyes turned to Elena. She took a deep breath, choosing her words with surgical precision. "Commander Voronov and his crew are deeply traumatized. They've fought for survival for over 3 centuries of subjective time. They've transformed themselves in ways we can't fully comprehend. But they are still human. And they came home because they never forgot what they were fighting for." "Pretty words," Draxlar hissed. "But what do they want? Why bring a military fleet to Alliance space? Why not simply send a message?" Elena had no answer to that. The truth was she didn't know what Fleet Exodus truly wanted, and that terrified her. The Council Arbiter raised his prismatic arms, calling for silence. "We will investigate these matters thoroughly. All ancient Earth records will be reviewed. Fleet Exodus will remain at the boundary. They will be provided supplies, but will not enter Alliance space proper." Elena wanted to protest, but she knew it was the best outcome possible. At least the Council wasn't voting for immediate military action. As the session ended, Elena made her way to the historical archives. Dr. Marcus Webb was waiting for her in the archive chamber. The elderly historian was one of the few humans who specialized in pre-Alliance history. His gray beard was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness. "You found something," Elena said. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded grimly, gesturing to holographic displays floating around him. "I found everything, Elena, and it's worse than we thought." He activated a file marked with the highest security classification. Elena recognized the seal of the old Earth government from the era of the dying sun. "The Great Dispersal wasn't just about survival," Marcus began, his voice heavy. "It was about preserving humanity in all its potential forms. The colony fleets carried settlers and scientists. The industrial fleets carried engineers and builders. But Fleet Exodus carried something different. The hologram showed soldiers, thousands of them, training in massive facilities, testing weapons, undergoing genetic modifications, studying combat tactics that pushed ethical boundaries. Fleet Exodus wasn't just an escort," Marcus continued. "It was an invasion force. The old Earth government knew that any aliens humanity encountered might be hostile, so they created a fleet designed to conquer, to dominate, to destroy if necessary." Elena felt sick. They sent warriors into the unknown, expecting war. "They sent the best soldiers humanity had ever created," Marcus corrected. "Enhanced, trained, equipped with experimental weapons that even our current science can't fully replicate." He pulled up another file, showing technical specifications. Elena recognized some of it from her visit to the Eternal Sentinel. "Void drives," Marcus explained. "They could theoretically achieve faster-than-light speeds through controlled space-time warping, but the calculations showed massive temporal dilation effects. The crews would experience years while centuries passed outside their reference frame. So when Voronov said they fought for 300 years while a million passed..." Elena trailed off. He was telling the absolute truth. Marcus finished. "They launched expecting a 10-year journey. They emerged a million years later, having lived over 3 centuries of constant warfare." Elena sank into a chair, her mind reeling. "What else did you find?" Marcus hesitated, then activated another file. This one showed star charts and sensor readings. "This is the region where Fleet Exodus was supposed to search for habitable worlds. According to these old surveys, there were anomalies detected, energy signatures suggesting advanced technology. The old Earth government thought it might be friendly aliens." "The Harvesters," Elena whispered. "We can assume so," Marcus agreed. Fleet Exodus walked into a war zone with no warning, no preparation beyond their weapons. They were supposed to be conquistadors, seeking new worlds. Instead, they became survivors fighting for every breath. He pulled up a final file, and Elena's blood ran cold. It was a mission directive, written by the old Earth Defense Council. The words were clinical, precise, and utterly horrifying. If Fleet Exodus encounters hostile forces superior to human technology, all ethical restraints are hereby suspended. Commanders are authorized to employ any means necessary for survival, including but not limited to forced biological augmentation, integration of captured alien technology, suspension of human rights protocols, and unrestricted use of void drive temporal manipulation. The mission is survival. All other considerations are secondary. Elena read it 3 times, hoping she'd misunderstood, but the words remained clear. Fleet Exodus had been given permission to become monsters if necessary, and they had. The old government knew this might happen, Elena said, her voice hollow. They sent these people out knowing they might have to sacrifice their humanity to survive. And they did survive, Marcus said quietly. For 1,000,000 years of objective time, 14,000 humans have been fighting their way back home. What kind of people does that create? Elena! Before she could answer, her communication device chimed urgently. It was Commander Xifax requesting her immediate presence in the command center. Something had happened. Elena ran to the corridors of station vigilance, Marcus struggling to keep up behind her. When they burst into the command center, they found it in absolute chaos. Every screen showed the same thing. Fleet Exodus was moving. They're not attacking, Xifax said quickly, seeing Elena's expression. But they're not staying at the boundary either. They're dispersing scout ships throughout nearby systems, conducting surveys. Did they request permission? Elena demanded. No, they simply informed us they were conducting reconnaissance. Commander Voronov said it was standard military procedure after arriving in unknown territory. Elena pulled up a communication channel. Get me Commander Voronov. Now. The hologram materialized within seconds. Voronov looked the same as before, his augmented eyes glowing in the dim light of his ship's bridge. Behind him, Elena could see crew members working at stations with inhuman precision. Ambassador Vasquez, Voronov greeted her calmly. I assume you're concerned about our ship movements. You can't just move through Alliance space without authorization, Elena said, trying to keep her voice level. There are protocols, procedures. Protocols written by species who've never faced extinction. Voronov interrupted, his voice firm but not harsh. We've arrived in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by unknown species. Before we can stand down from combat readiness, we must ensure there are no threats. The Alliance is not a threat, Elena insisted. Voronov tilted his head, studying her. Perhaps, but we've learned not to take anyone's word on such matters. We will verify the situation ourselves. Our scouts will complete their survey in 72 hours. We will not interfere with inhabited systems or civilian traffic. This is unacceptable, Xifax interjected, his translator making his mandible click sound sharp. You're violating Alliance space regulations. We could interpret this as an act of war. For the first time, Voronov smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Commander Xifax, I presume you command Station Vigilance's defense fleet? I do. How many ships in your fleet? Xifax straightened. That's classified information. 268 combat vessels, Voronov stated flatly. Your largest ship mass is 900,000 tons. Your most powerful weapon is a plasma cascade cannon with an effective range of 650,000 kilometers. Your shields can withstand approximately 52 terawatts of sustained fire before failure. The command center fell into stunned silence. Voronov had just recited classified military data that should have been impossible to obtain. We've been scanning your defenses since we arrived. Voronov continued calmly. Your technology is impressive for a peaceful civilization. But, Commander, my fleet has fought enemies that make your entire military look like children playing with toys. We don't want war with the Alliance. But do not threaten us with war. You would lose. He said it without arrogance, without anger, just a simple statement of fact. And somehow that made it infinitely more terrifying. Elena stepped forward, placing herself between the two commanders. Commander Voronov, please. We're not your enemies. But you must understand, the Alliance has never encountered anything like your fleet. They're afraid. They need time to adjust, to understand. Voronov's expression softened slightly. I understand fear, Ambassador. I've lived with it for 3 centuries. But fear is an excuse for stupidity. We will complete our reconnaissance. We will determine if this region is safe. And then we will decide what comes next. Decide what comes next. Elena repeated. What does that mean? It means we need to understand what humanity has become. Voronov said, we left Earth as its defenders. We return to find our descendants integrated into an alien coalition, following alien laws, living alien lives. We need to know if that's acceptable. Acceptable? Elena felt her temper rising. You don't get to judge us. We survived. We thrived. We built something beautiful here. Did you? Voronov asked quietly. Or did you simply surrender your independence for the illusion of security? Before Elena could respond, Voronov cut the connection. His hologram vanished, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Marcus placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. There's something else you need to see. Something I found in the archives that you're not going to like. The betrayal revealed. They returned to the historical database, and Marcus pulled up a series of files marked with Alliance seals. Recent files, not ancient ones. These are Alliance intelligence reports, Marcus explained, his voice grim. From the first decades after humanity joined the Alliance. Elena, the Alliance has been manipulating us, deliberately keeping us weak. The files showed meeting minutes, secret directives, psychological profiles. Elena read them with growing horror. The Alliance had identified humanity as a potential threat from first contact. Humans bred rapidly, adapted easily, showed remarkable aggression when threatened, and possessed an uncomfortable tendency toward independent action. So the Alliance had implemented a long-term strategy. They encouraged human integration into galactic society. They promoted human artists and scientists while quietly discouraging military development. They used social engineering and subtle pressure to reshape human culture into something peaceful, cooperative, and, most importantly, controllable. It had taken 4 centuries, but it had worked. Modern humanity was exactly what the Alliance wanted. Smart enough to be useful, peaceful enough to be harmless. They made us weak on purpose, Elena whispered. They made us safe, Marcus countered. There's a difference. But Elena, if Commander Voronov discovers this. Elena didn't need him to finish. Fleet Exodus had fought for 1,000,000 years to protect humanity. If they learned their descendants had been deliberately neutered by alien manipulation, there would be war, and the Alliance would lose. Elena looked at the data one more time, then made a decision. Delete these files. Encrypt them. Lock them behind security that even I can't access. Elena, do it, she ordered, her voice steel. Voronov can't know. Not yet. Not until we find a way to bridge this divide between ancient and modern humanity. If he learns the truth now, millions will die. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. His fingers moved across the controls, and the files vanished into encrypted storage. But Elena knew the truth would emerge eventually. It always did. And when it did, the galaxy would burn. The integration zones were supposed to be neutral ground. 3 asteroid stations had been converted into meeting places where crew members from Fleet Exodus could interact with the wider galaxy under controlled conditions. The Alliance hoped that contact with modern civilization would help the ancient warriors adjust to peaceful life. It was a disaster from the beginning. Elena watched security footage with growing dread. On Station Gamma, a Fleet Exodus soldier named Lieutenant Karina Volkov encountered a group of modern humans working at a trade depot. The conversation started cordially enough, but then Volkov learned that these humans reported to a Draxian supervisor. You take orders from an alien? Volkov's voice was sharp with disbelief. The modern human, a young man named Gene Park, looked confused. Mr. Drax Venn is my supervisor. It's normal workplace hierarchy. You're a human. You shouldn't be taking orders from anything that isn't human. Jin's expression hardened. That's racist. The alliance is built on equality between species. Volkov stepped closer, and even to the camera, Elena could see the predatory grace in her movements. Equality? You're biologically superior to most species on this station. You're faster, stronger, more adaptable. Yet you accept subordinate positions. Your ancestors would be ashamed. Security had to intervene before the situation escalated. Volkov left peacefully, but the damage was done. Within hours, the incident was all over the galactic news networks. Ancient human soldier promotes species supremacy. Modern humans denounce ancestors' beliefs. Alliance fears extremist ideology. But that was just one incident among hundreds. On Station Alpha, Exodus crew members witnessed a human family celebrating their daughter's bonding ceremony with a Cerulean partner. The sight of human-alien interbreeding sent several Exodus soldiers into visible rage. They didn't attack, but they made their disgust abundantly clear. The family left in tears. The story spread across every human colony. On Station Beta, an Exodus engineer gave an impromptu demonstration of hand-to-hand combat techniques. Within days, young humans from nearby colonies arrived, begging to be taught. The Alliance tried to shut down these training sessions, but they moved underground, held in cargo bays and abandoned facilities. Elena found herself in emergency meetings every day, trying to control the damage. But the truth was simple and terrifying. Fleet Exodus represented something modern humanity had forgotten. They represented strength, pride, the idea that humans didn't have to apologize for existing. And many young humans found that message intoxicating. We're losing control of the narrative, Ambassador Kale-9 said during one late-night meeting, his sensory tendrils drooping with exhaustion. Every day, more humans express sympathy for Exodus positions. They're calling themselves inheritors now, claiming they want to inherit the strength of their ancestors. Elena rubbed her temples, feeling a migraine building. The Alliance is making it worse by trying to censor them. It just makes Exodus look like victims of oppression. They are victims, Marcus Webb said quietly. He had become Elena's unofficial advisor on all things Fleet Exodus. Victims of time, of war, of everything they endured. But that doesn't make them right. Does it make them wrong? Elena asked. The room fell silent. It was the question no one wanted to address. Were the Exodus soldiers wrong to be proud of their humanity? Were they wrong to question why modern humans seem so passive, so willing to follow alien leadership? The answer was complicated, and complications were dangerous. A message alert interrupted the uncomfortable silence. Elena's face went pale as she read it. Commander Voronov is requesting a private meeting. On Earth. Absolutely not. High Counselor Draxstar declared when Elena brought the request to the full council. We cannot allow him to visit Earth. The symbolism alone would be catastrophic. He has the right to see his homeworld, Elena argued. His fleet fought for 1,000,000 years to return home. Are we going to deny them even that? Earth is not his home, Draxstar countered. His home was destroyed by the expanding sun 1,000,000 years ago. Modern Earth is a different world, built by different humans. He has no claim to it. He's still human, Elena said, her voice rising. And I'm still the human representative. I'm authorizing the meeting. The council erupted in argument, but Elena had the authority. 24 hours later, she found herself standing in a meadow on Earth, watching a shuttle descend from orbit. Commander Voronov emerged alone, no guards, no weapons. For the first time, Elena saw him without his armor. He wore a simple uniform, though the metallic sheen of his augmented skin was still visible. He stood in the grass, looking around with an expression of profound wonder. Trees, he whispered. Real trees. I'd forgotten what they looked like. Elena gave him space, watching as he walked through the meadow. He touched leaves, smelled flowers, knelt to feel soil between his fingers. When he looked up at the sky, she saw tears running down his face. We made it, he whispered. After everything, we made a home. They walked in silence for a while, following a path through the forest. Eventually, they reached a cliff overlooking the ocean. Voronov stood at the edge, watching waves crash against rocks far below. This isn't the Earth I remember, he finally said. My Earth was dying. The sun was expanding. The oceans were boiling away. We evacuated billions, but there wasn't enough time, enough ships. I remember watching children being left behind because there was no room. His hands clenched into fists. I remember their screams. That's why we accepted the mission. That's why we volunteered to become what we became. Because someone had to go out there and find safety for humanity, no matter the cost. You did find it, Elena said gently. Look around. Humanity is safe. We're thriving. Your mission succeeded. Did it? Voronov turned to face her, his augmented eyes glowing. I see humans who've forgotten what it means to be human. I see a species that surrendered its identity to become part of some galactic collective. I see weakness where there should be strength. You see peace where there used to be war, Elena corrected. You see cooperation where there used to be conflict. Is that really so terrible? It's terrible if it means humanity can't defend itself, Voronov said. What happens when the alliance fails? What happens when a real threat emerges? Will your diplomats and artists save you? The alliance has maintained peace for over 3,000 years, Elena argued. 3,000 years is nothing, Voronov interrupted. The harvesters existed for millions of years before we destroyed them. There are threats in this universe your precious alliance can't even imagine. And when they come, humanity needs to be strong enough to survive. So, what do you want? Elena asked, frustration bleeding into her voice. Do you want us to abandon the alliance? Start building weapons? Turn humanity back into warriors? Voronov looked back at the ocean. I want humanity to have a choice. Right now, you've been shaped by alien influence into something docile and controlled. I want humans to remember that we can be more than that. And if remembering means violence? Elena challenged. Then it means survival. Voronov said simply, I'd rather see humanity standing and fighting than kneeling in peace. Elena wanted to argue, but movement in the sky caught her attention. Shuttles, dozens of them, descending toward the meadow. What did you do? She demanded. Voronov didn't look surprised. I invited people to meet me. People want to hear what I have to say. The shuttles landed, and hundreds of humans emerged. Young people mostly, but also some older ones. They wore homemade uniforms bearing the Fleet Exodus symbol. The Inheritors. You can't recruit people like this, Elena said. The Alliance will see it as an act of aggression. I'm not recruiting, Voronov replied. I'm simply offering truth. These people chose to come on their own. He walked toward the gathered crowd, and Elena had no choice but to follow. The young humans looked at Voronov with something close to worship in their eyes. You came to hear me speak, Voronov addressed them, his voice carrying easily across the meadow. So I'll speak truth. You've been told that humanity's place is within the Alliance. That peace is the highest virtue. That strength is barbarism. But I'm here to tell you that your ancestors were strong. They conquered Earth's gravity well. They built empires among the stars. They faced extinction and refused to die. The crowd murmured in agreement. Elena saw dangerous enthusiasm in their faces. The Alliance fears strength, Voronov continued. They fear what humanity could become if we remembered our power. So they spent centuries making you weak, teaching you to doubt yourselves, to seek alien approval before taking action. They've turned you into servants in your own galaxy. That's not fair, Elena called out. The Alliance gave us technology, knowledge, allies. The Alliance gave you a cage and told you it was paradise. Voronov shot back. And you believe them because you've forgotten what freedom tasted like. He turned back to the crowd. I'm not here to start a war. I'm not here to destroy the Alliance. But I am here to offer a choice. You can continue as you are, peaceful and controlled, or you can reclaim your heritage, remember your strength, become what humanity was always meant to be. And what is that? Someone in the crowd called out. Voronov smiled. Unstoppable. The crowd erupted in cheers. Elena watched in horror as hundreds of young humans pledged themselves to Voronov's cause. They wanted training. They wanted augmentation. They wanted to join Fleet Exodus and learn what it meant to be true humans. Within hours, The news spread across every human colony. The inheritor movement exploded in size. Protests erupted on Alliance worlds, with humans demanding more autonomy, more respect, more recognition of their species' achievements. The Alliance called emergency sessions. Alien representatives demanded that humanity control its extremist elements. Some species proposed sanctions. Others suggested military intervention. And through it all, Fleet Exodus remained at the boundary, watching and waiting. Elena returned to Station Vigilance to find absolute chaos. Human delegates were shouting at alien counselors. Accusations flew in every direction. The carefully maintained peace of the Alliance was fracturing along species lines. Ambassador Kale-9 found her in her office, staring at reports of riots on 3 different worlds. "Elena, you must do something," he said urgently. "The Council is talking about declaring Fleet Exodus a terrorist organization. They'd start a war they can't win," Elena said numbly. "I know," Kale-9 replied. "That's why we need you to prevent it. You're the bridge between modern and ancient humanity. You must find a solution." But Elena had no solution. How could she bridge a gap of 1,000,000 years? How could she reconcile the peaceful species humanity had become with the warriors they used to be? Her communication device chimed. It was Marcus Webb, and he sounded panicked. "Elena, you need to see this. I found more files. The Alliance has been preparing for this scenario for decades." Preparing how? Military protocols for containing a human uprising. Contingency plans for orbital strikes on human colonies if they become too aggressive. "Elena, the Alliance has been planning how to suppress humanity since we joined. They always feared we might remember our past." Elena felt ice in her veins. If Voronov discovers these files, if the inheritors learn that the Alliance has been planning to bomb human worlds. "How many people know about this?" she asked. "Just me so far." "But Elena, these files aren't as well encrypted as the others. If Fleet Exodus scans deep enough into Alliance databases, they'll find them." Elena made a decision. Lock them down. Maximum encryption. And Marcus, start preparing evacuation protocols. Because if the situation gets any worse, we might need to evacuate Alliance space entirely. "You think we'll come to that?" Elena looked out her window at the stars, thinking of Fleet Exodus somewhere in the darkness. "I think we're standing at the edge of a cliff, Marcus, and I don't know if anyone is strong enough to pull us back." The first shot was fired on a colony called Nova Shanghai, 3 weeks after Voronov's speech on Earth. No one was certain who fired it, whether it was an Exodus sympathizer or an Alliance provocateur, but the result was catastrophic. A human mob attacked the Alliance administration building. Alien security forces responded with lethal force. 17 humans died, including an 8-year-old girl. The images spread across the galactic network within minutes. A child's body being carried from the rubble, her father screaming in grief, blood on human and alien hands alike. The galaxy watched in horror as the fragile peace finally shattered. Within hours, Fleet Exodus moved, not to attack but to claim. Their ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above 9 human colonies simultaneously, broadcasting the same message. This world is now under protection of Fleet Exodus. All Alliance military forces are ordered to withdraw immediately. Failure to comply will be met with force. The Alliance called it invasion. Voronov called it liberation. The humans living on those worlds called it confusing, terrifying, and, for many, exciting. Elena watched from Station Vigilance as her worst fears materialized. Alliance fleets mobilized, moving to surround the occupied worlds. But they hesitated. No one wanted to fire the first shot that would start a war with Fleet Exodus. Everyone had seen the combat simulations. Everyone knew how such a war would end. "We must negotiate," Ambassador Kale-9 insisted during an emergency council session. "Before this spirals beyond control." Negotiate? High Counselor Draxtar's scales flushed crimson with rage. They've seized sovereign Alliance territory. They've declared independence for worlds under Alliance protection. There's nothing to negotiate. Then what do you propose? Elena demanded. War? Are you willing to sacrifice millions of lives to maintain control over human colonies? We're willing to maintain order, Draxar replied coldly. If humanity cannot control its extremist elements, the Alliance will do it for them. The threat was clear, and it sent chills through every human representative in the chamber. This was exactly what Marcus had found in those encrypted files. The Alliance had always been prepared to put humanity down if they became too troublesome. Elena stood, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Is that what this has always been about? Keeping humanity weak enough that you could destroy us if necessary? The chamber fell silent. Several alien counselors looked uncomfortable, avoiding Elena's gaze. The Alliance has protected humanity for centuries, Draxar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Protected us? Elena pulled up files on her display, Marcus's research filling the screens around the chamber. Or controlled us. I found documents showing social engineering programs designed to make humans more peaceful. I found military contingencies for orbital strikes on human colonies. I found centuries of manipulation disguised as friendship. Those files are classified, another counselor objected weakly. They're also true, Elena shot back. And now the humans you were so afraid of have returned from the darkness. The humans you couldn't manipulate, couldn't control. And you're terrified because you know they're stronger than you. This is treason, Draxar declared. Ambassador Vasquez, you are hereby removed from your position and placed under arrest. Alliance security moved toward Elena, but Ambassador Kale 9 stepped between them. You will not touch her, Kale 9 said firmly. Elena speaks truth that needed to be spoken. If the Alliance has been manipulating humanity, we all deserve to know. Other representatives began speaking up, demanding investigations, calling for transparency. The Alliance was fracturing, species choosing sides based on old alliances and new fears. While the Council tore itself apart, Elena received a message on her private channel. It was from Commander Voronov. Ambassador Vasquez, I think it's time we spoke honestly. Come to Nova Shanghai. Come see what we're building. Elena knew it was dangerous, possibly suicidal. The Alliance would see it as collusion with the enemy. But she had run out of options. Someone had to try to prevent total war. She took a shuttle to Nova Shanghai without authorization, leaving station vigilance in chaos behind her. As she approached the colony, she saw Exodus warships in orbit, their weapons tracking every vessel that came near. But they let her through. She landed in the capital city. The transformation was already visible. Exodus soldiers walked the streets alongside local humans, their augmented forms intimidating but not threatening. The Alliance Administration building had been converted into a training center where young humans learned combat techniques. Recruitment stations were set up on every corner, with long lines of volunteers. Commander Voronov met her in what had been the governor's office. Maps covered the walls, showing human colonies throughout the galaxy, 9 now marked in Exodus blue. Ambassador Vasquez, he greeted her. Thank you for coming. I know this required courage. Courage or stupidity, Elena replied. Commander, you're starting a war that will destroy millions of lives. You must know the Alliance won't simply let you take their colonies. They're not Alliance colonies, Voronov corrected. They're human colonies that the Alliance claimed authority over. And the humans living here support us. We've held votes in all 9 systems. Over 73% chose to align with Fleet Exodus rather than remain under Alliance control. Elena had seen the voting results. He wasn't lying, though she suspected the votes were influenced by Exodus propaganda and the death of that child in the riots. What do you want, Commander? Elena asked tiredly. What's your end game? Voronov gestured to maps. I want humanity to be free. Not free to do whatever the Alliance permits, but truly free to determine our own destiny. These 9 colonies are just the beginning. More will follow. Eventually, humanity will have to choose between remaining with the Alliance or forging our own path. A path built on military might, Elena said. A path that returns us to being warriors and conquerors. If necessary, Voronov agreed, but not because we want war. Because we refuse to be controlled by fear of war. The Alliance kept you weak because they were afraid of what you might become. I'm giving humans a choice to become strong again. And the humans who don't want that choice? Elena challenged. What about the humans who are happy with the peace we built? They're welcome to keep their peace, Voronov said. But they'll keep it in alliance space, not in human space. The galaxy is large enough for both versions of humanity. Elena saw the trap in his logic. You're dividing humanity, creating a schism that might never heal. Humanity was already divided, Voronov replied. Between those who remember what we're capable of and those who've forgotten, I'm simply making that division visible. Before Elena could respond, alarms began blaring. Voronov's expression darkened as he pulled up a tactical display. Elena's heart sank as she saw what the sensors were showing. The Alliance had made its move. A massive fleet had entered the system, over 400 ships surrounding Nova Shanghai. It was the largest military force the Alliance had assembled in centuries. All Exodus forces. Came a transmission from the Alliance fleet commander, a grizzled Draxian admiral named Threxcor. You are in violation of Alliance law. Surrender immediately, or we will be forced to remove you by military action. Voronov studied the tactical situation with unnerving calm. Admiral Threxcor, your forces are impressive, but they're not sufficient to defeat Fleet Exodus. Withdraw now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. You're outnumbered 4-1, Threxcor responded. Surrender or be destroyed. Elena watched Voronov carefully. This was the moment of decision. War or peace. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Commander, she said quietly, please, there must be another way. Voronov looked at her, and for a moment she saw the weight of 3 centuries of war in his eyes. There's always another way, Ambassador, but the Alliance won't take it. They've decided that humanity must be brought to heel. He touched the control, and Elena gasped as new contact appeared on the tactical display. More Exodus ships, emerging from stealth positions throughout the system. The Alliance fleet wasn't surrounding Fleet Exodus. They were surrounded by it. As you can see, Admiral Threxcor, Voronov said calmly, I anticipate your response. My fleet has had weeks to prepare for this confrontation. You're welcome to test your forces against mine, but I promise you the result will be catastrophic for the Alliance. The communication channels erupted with chatter from the Alliance fleet. Elena could hear the panic in their voices as they realized the tactical situation had reversed. This is madness, Threxcor finally replied. If we fight here, billions will die across the galaxy as this conflict spreads. Then don't fight, Voronov said simply. Withdraw your forces. Recognize the independence of these human colonies. Let humanity make its own choices. I don't have authority to make that decision, Threxcor admitted. Then get someone who does. Voronov commanded. You have 6 hours before I consider your presence an act of war. The transmission ended. Elena rounded on Voronov, her fear turning to anger. You planned this from the beginning. You wanted this confrontation. I prepared for this confrontation, Voronov corrected. The Alliance was always going to respond with force. I simply made sure that force wouldn't be enough. Now they must negotiate. Or they'll call your bluff, Elena said. What happens if they attack anyway? Voronov's expression became cold. It's not a bluff, Ambassador. If they attack, I will destroy their fleet, and then I will move on Alliance homeworlds. And I will keep moving until the Alliance agrees to let humanity go. Elena felt sick. This was genocide he was threatening. The ancient humans I read about, the ones who launched into the darkness to save their species, they would never have done this. They were heroes, not monsters. Heroes become monsters when the situation demands it. Voronov said quietly, That's the lesson of war, Ambassador. That's what 3 centuries of fighting the Harvesters taught me. Sometimes you must be willing to become the very thing you fight against to ensure survival. Then you're no better than the Harvesters, Elena accused. Voronov didn't flinch. Perhaps not, but I'm alive. My crew is alive. Humanity is alive. Sometimes that's all that matters. The 6 hours passed in terrible tension. Elena tried desperately to reach the Alliance, to find some compromise, but no one would listen. The council was divided between those who wanted to attack immediately and those who wanted to negotiate. The paralysis of democracy at its worst. With 1 hour remaining, a new transmission arrived. Not from Admiral Threx Corps, but from Station Vigilance itself. It was the Council Arbiter, the being of pure energy that led the entire galactic government. Commander Voronov. The Arbiter's voice chimed like crystal. The Alliance has considered your demands. We cannot accept them. To do so would be to admit that military force determines law, that might makes right. We cannot build a civilization on such principles. You already have, Voronov replied. You build it on the principle that the Alliance's military might keeps order. I'm simply showing you that your might isn't sufficient to control humanity. If we give in to you, every species in the Alliance will demand similar independence, the Arbiter said. The coalition will collapse. Thousands of years of peace will end. Maybe it's time for it to end, Voronov said. Maybe a peace built on control and fear isn't worth preserving. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. Very well. You leave us no choice. The Alliance fleets will attack in 1 hour. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. Elena felt her world collapsing. This was it. War. Real war on a scale the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. But before the hour expired, something unexpected happened. Another fleet arrived. But this wasn't an Alliance fleet. It was human. Modern human. Civilian ships. Cargo vessels, passenger transports. Private yachts. Thousands of them, forming a wall between the Alliance fleet and the Exodus forces. A transmission came from the lead ship. Elena recognized the voice immediately. It was Marcus Webb. This is Professor Marcus Webb speaking for the Human Peace Fleet. We are unarmed civilians. We have placed ourselves between the Alliance and Fleet Exodus. If you want to start this war, you'll have to go through us first. Elena pulled up the manifest. There were over 15,000 ships, carrying millions of modern humans who had rushed to Nova Shanghai to prevent bloodshed. We don't support Fleet Exodus's methods, Marcus continued. But we don't support the Alliance's manipulation either. Humanity deserves truth, freedom, and the right to determine our own future. We call on both sides to stand down and negotiate in good faith. The Alliance fleet didn't respond. Neither did Fleet Exodus. The galaxy held its breath. Finally, Commander Voronov spoke. Very well. I'll agree to talks, but not with the full Alliance. I'll speak only with human representatives. Let humanity decide its own fate. The Arbiter chimed in response. Agreed. A summit will be convened on Earth. All parties will attend, but the blockade remains until an agreement is reached. The immediate crisis passed, but everyone knew this was just a pause. The real battle was about to begin, not with weapons, but with words. And Elena knew that what was decided in the coming days would determine humanity's future for generations to come. Earth had never seen such a gathering. The summit took place in Geneva, in an ancient building that had once housed the United Nations before humanity reached the stars. Representatives from every human colony attended, along with observers from the Alliance. But the real tension was between three groups: modern humans who supported the Alliance, the inheritors who followed Fleet Exodus, and those who sought a middle path. Commander Voronov arrived without his armor, a gesture of goodwill that fooled no one. His augmented body was weapon enough. Elena found herself appointed as mediator, representing neither side, but trying to find common ground. It was an impossible task. The first 4 days were brutal. Arguments echoed through the chamber as both sides presented their cases. The inheritors showed evidence of Alliance manipulation, the social engineering programs, the contingency plans for suppressing humanity. They painted a picture of a species that had been slowly neutered by alien overlords. The Alliance supporters countered with evidence of Exodus intimidation, forced recruitment, the violence that followed wherever Fleet Exodus went. They spoke of the peace humanity had enjoyed for centuries, the prosperity and safety that came from cooperation. Neither side was entirely wrong. Neither side was entirely right, and that made compromise nearly impossible. On the 5th day, Elena called for a closed session. Just her, Commander Voronov, and a young woman named Kirichin, no relation, who had become the unofficial leader of the moderate humans. They met in a small room away from cameras and crowds. We're getting nowhere, Elena said bluntly. The Alliance supporters will never accept military independence, and Fleet Exodus will never accept continued Alliance control. We need a different approach. What do you suggest? Kira asked. She was young, barely 28, but she had shown remarkable leadership in organizing the Peace Fleet. Elena took a deep breath. What if we stopped thinking about this as a choice between two options? What if humanity split into two branches? Voronov raised an eyebrow. Explain. The galaxy is vast, Elena continued, large enough for multiple versions of humanity. What if the Exodus colonies became independent, free to develop as they choose? Meanwhile, the Alliance colonies remain part of the galactic government. Two different paths for humanity. Both legitimate, both free. The Alliance will never agree to that, Kira said. It sets a precedent for every species to demand independence. Let them, Elena replied. Maybe it's time for the Alliance to evolve from a controlling government into a true coalition of sovereign equals. Maybe this crisis is an opportunity to build something better. Voronov leaned back, considering. You propose we formalize the division. Fleet Exodus and its supporters establish independent colonies beyond Alliance space. Modern humans remain with the Alliance, but with guaranteed autonomy. And both branches of humanity maintain an alliance. Exactly, Elena said. The covenant of two paths. We acknowledge that humanity has evolved in different directions. We stop fighting about which way is right and accept that both ways have value. Kira frowned. But what happens when conflicts arise between the two branches? What if Exodus colonies become aggressive toward Alliance space? We establish treaties, Elena said. Clear boundaries, mutual defense agreements, trade relationships. We become allies rather than trying to force unity. And if the two branches go to war with each other? Voronov asked quietly. Elena met his gaze. Then humanity destroys itself, which is what will happen if we don't find a solution now. At least this way we give peace a chance. The three of them sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Voronov nodded slowly. I'll present this to my officers. But I have one condition. What condition? Elena asked wearily. The Alliance must publicly acknowledge its manipulation of humanity. No more lies. No more hidden programs. If we're to trust them as allies, we must have transparency. Elena knew how difficult that would be. The Alliance's pride, the admission of wrongdoing, the political fallout. But it was necessary. I'll make it happen, she promised. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of negotiations. The Alliance resisted at first, but the alternative was war with Fleet Exodus, and nobody wanted that. Slowly, painfully, the framework of the Covenant emerged. Fleet Exodus and its supporters would establish the free human territories beyond the Outer Rim. They would be sovereign, independent, free to develop their own culture and military. The Alliance colonies will remain within the galactic government, but with guaranteed autonomy and recognition as a distinct entity with the right to self-governance. Trade agreements were drafted, defense pacts were written, boundaries were established, and most importantly, the Alliance agreed to release all classified files related to humanity, exposing centuries of manipulation. The revelations shocked the galaxy. Many species were outraged at the Alliance's actions. Others admitted they had suspected something. The political fallout was enormous, leading to reforms throughout the Alliance structure. The era of centralized control was ending, replaced by a more balanced system of sovereign cooperation. But amid the political chaos, there was hope. Humanity was finally free to choose its own path. Both paths. On the final day of the summit, Elena stood beside Commander Voronov on a stage before thousands of humans and millions more watching remotely. They signed a covenant together, their signatures representing the two branches of humanity. Today, we acknowledge a truth, Elena said to the assembled crowd. Humanity is not one thing. We are diverse, contradictory, capable of great peace and great violence. We are artists and warriors, diplomats and soldiers. We are everything in between. And that's not weakness. That's strength. Voronov stepped forward, his augmented form somehow less intimidating in the moment. My crew and I left Earth 1,000,000 years ago to protect humanity. We endured hell itself for that mission. And today we complete that mission, not by controlling humanity's future, but by ensuring humans are free to choose their own future. He turned to face the crowd. To those who choose the path of warriors, who will join Fleet Exodus in the free territories, I promise you purpose and strength. We will build a society that honors the fighting spirit of our ancestors. We will be humanity's shield against the darkness. Then he looked at the Alliance supporters. And to those who choose the path of peace, who will remain with the Alliance, I say this: don't think yourselves weak. Peace requires its own kind of strength. You will build a society of wisdom and cooperation. You will be humanity's light in the darkness. He paused, and for the first time since his return, Elena saw him smile, a real smile, warm and genuine. Both paths are necessary. Both are valid. And together, we are stronger than either could be alone. This is a covenant of two paths. This is humanity, finally free. The crowd erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy with the compromise, but most recognized it as the best option available. The alternative had been war, division, the possible destruction of everything humanity had built. Over the following months, the covenant took shape. Fleet Exodus moved beyond the outer rim, establishing colonies in regions the Alliance had never explored. They took with them over 3 million modern humans who wanted to embrace the warrior path, young people mostly, seeking purpose and strength. Elena visited one of the new colonies, a world they named Vanguard. It was harsh, demanding, exactly what the Exodus refugees wanted. She watched as modern humans underwent augmentation processes, transforming themselves into something closer to Voronov and his crew. It was disturbing, watching people deliberately make themselves into weapons. But it was their choice, and she had fought for their right to make that choice. On her last day there, Voronov gave her a tour of the military academy they were building. Young humans trained in combat, studied strategy, learned the harsh lessons that Fleet Exodus had learned over 3 centuries of war. Do you regret what you become? Elena asked him as they watched the students practice. Voronov was quiet for a long time. Every day, he finally admitted. I remember what it was like to be fully human before the augmentations, before the war. I remember laughing without purpose, sleeping without nightmares, touching someone without calculating threat levels. He turned to look at her, his glowing eyes reflecting something profoundly human. But I don't regret the choice. We did what was necessary. And now, because we did, humanity has options. Young people like these students can choose to become warriors, or they can choose peace. Both choices are valid because we paid the price for freedom. Elena wanted to argue, to say there must have been another way, but she had seen what the harvesters had done to the regions of Space Fleet Exodus had crossed. She had seen the dead civilizations, the consumed worlds. Perhaps there really had been no other way. There's something else you need to know, Voronov said quietly. Something I haven't told the Alliance or even most of my crew. He pulled up a star chart showing the region beyond the free territories. In the darkness beyond, strange energy signatures pulsed. The harvesters aren't extinct, Voronov said. We destroyed their forward forces, their active installations, but their core intelligence survived. It retreated deeper into the void where our sensors could barely detect it. Elena felt cold spreading through her chest. And it's rebuilding. Yes. How long do we have? 12,000 years, maybe more, Voronov replied. Time enough for civilizations to rise and fall. But they're coming, Elena. Eventually they'll reach Alliance space. And when they do, the galaxy will face a threat unlike anything it has ever known. Why are you telling me this? Because humanity needs to be ready, Voronov said. Both branches of humanity. The Alliance needs to know that peace is temporary, that threats exist beyond their borders, and Fleet Exodus needs a purpose beyond simple independence. We will guard the outer darkness. We will watch for the harvester's return, and we will buy the galaxy time. He looked back at the training students. These young warriors will be humanity's shield when the darkness comes again, but they'll need the Alliance's wisdom, technology, and resources to succeed. The two branches of humanity must work together when that day arrives. Elena understood now. The Covenant wasn't just about ending a crisis. It was about preparing for a future threat that most of the galaxy didn't even know existed. The Alliance won't believe you without proof. Then we'll provide proof when the time is right, Voronov replied. For now, it's enough that we know, that we prepare, that we ensure humanity in all its forms is strong enough to survive what's coming. Years passed. The Covenant held, though tensions remained. Some humans were angry about the division, claiming it weakened the species. Others celebrated it, saying it allowed humanity to explore its full potential. The Alliance reformed itself, becoming less centralized, more respectful of species autonomy. Other species began demanding similar arrangements, and slowly the galactic government evolved into something better. Not perfect, but more just. Fleet Exodus established 17 colonies in the free territories, building a society based on strength, discipline, and martial excellence. They weren't the monsters some had feared. They were simply humans who chose a different path, who valued different things. And on the boundary between the two territories, monuments were erected, statues of Commander Voronov standing beside Ambassador Vasquez, representing the two paths of humanity. Plaques explained the Covenant, reminded future generations why the division was necessary. One inscription appeared on every monument, written in every human language. We are one species walking two paths. The warrior and the peacemaker, the shield and the light, both necessary, both valued, both human. When darkness comes, we stand together. When peace reigns, we celebrate our differences. This is humanity. This is our strength. Elena stood before one such monument years later, now an old woman. Beside her stood young people from both branches of humanity, learning their history, understanding why their ancestors made the choices they did. Did we make the right choice? One young woman asked. She wore the uniform of an Alliance diplomatic cadet. I don't know, Elena admitted. History will judge us. But we made the best choice we could with the information we had. We chose freedom over control, diversity over unity. We chose to let humanity be everything it could be rather than forcing it into a single mold. A young man in Exodus military armor spoke up. My grandfather served with Commander Voronov. He told me that the greatest victory Fleet Exodus achieved wasn't destroying the harvesters. It was returning home and giving humanity a choice. Elena smiled. Your grandfather was a wise man. She looked up at the stars, thinking of Commander Voronov somewhere in the free territories, watching the darkness beyond. Thinking of the threat that would someday emerge from that darkness. Thinking of the future that humanity, all of humanity, would have to face together. But for now, there was peace. Not perfect peace, but real peace. The kind that required work, compromise, and mutual respect. The kind worth fighting for. The kind that Fleet Exodus and 3 million souls has spent 1 million years earning. Elena touched the monument, feeling the cold stone beneath her fingers. Thank you, she whispered to those ancient warriors. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for coming home. Thank you for giving us the freedom to be ourselves. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, Fleet Exodus kept watch. Somewhere in Alliance space, humanity thrived and grew. And somewhere between those two extremes, the Covenant held, a bridge between past and future, between war and peace, between the two souls of humanity. The galaxy spun on, ignorant of the threat that lurked in the void. But humanity knew. Both branches knew. And when the darkness came again, they would be ready. Together, humanity would face the dawn, carrying both sword and olive branch, prepared for whatever the universe threw at them. This was the lesson of Fleet Exodus. This was the meaning of the Covenant. Not that one path was right and the other wrong, but that both paths together made humanity unstoppable. The stars waited, the darkness gathered, and humanity, finally united in its diversity, finally free to choose its own destiny, stood ready to face whatever came next. The 1 million-year journey was complete, but the story of humanity was just beginning. For more such thrilling science fiction stories, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Starborn Tales.